Welcome back to R&R on Sports. We are the R's.
What?
We're the R's.
What are you doing, man? Listen, we have an amazing guest, and you are like dragging this out. I need you to get right to the point, introduce the guest so we can get started interviewing. So can you do your job, man? Damn. Come on, man.
You through?
I'm finished.
Good. Don't say anything else the whole
I might.
We are thrilled to have back with us one of our guys from way back. I'm talking about two-time NBA All-Star with the mostly with the New York Knicks. Occasionally.
Yeah. You mean the all-star part or the career part?
Career part. Career part. Alan Houston, welcome back to R&R on Sports, my brother.
Yeah, it's good to be back. Good to be back. Good to
What's
be back.
up, Al?
This ain't your first rodeo. You've been with us for
I remember when y'all had a studio about the size of this table. I was way back.
It went
Yeah,
out.
y'all didn't have the,
No,
y'all
we
didn't have
didn't
the
have-
conglomerate. Y'all ain't had the
for real.
conglomerate yet.
And then we had the apartment.
Yeah.
yes.
Then we had the apartment. Yeah.
Well, we had that until about week before last.
Yesterday, day before yesterday.
Right. Proud of y'all, man.
Appreciate it, man.
I really
Appreciate
am.
it. We here's what we want to do. We don't want to assume that anybody has heard any past show with you.
Okay.
Okay? And so we want to do your background and career in 3 sections.
Okay.
Yesterday, today, and tomorrow.
Okay.
All right?
That's pretty
So-
good.
I like
Like
that.
that.
It's like he
That's
sliding like
good.
biblical
What?
principles in here. Like,
Yeah, you can slide them on in. Slide them on in. Let's start with yesterday.
Okay.
Now, I want to start with this. Everybody talks about it takes a village, okay? Talk about your village. And I happen to know that somebody special, real special, was on your street or your mom's street. Talk about that, because that was all part of your village, too.
So whenever I introduce myself to people who have no idea who Allen Houston is, I start with Louisville, Kentucky. Then I go to Grand Avenue. Then I go to 3303 and 3306.
Okay.
Okay.
And 3303 was the Clays, Muhammad Ali, the Cassius Clay, the family. And my grandmother and Miss Clay were friends. So then my uncle and my mother and Ali went to school together. And you know, whenever I hear the stories, I'm like, wow, just my mother likes to tell the story. There were here's a piece of trivia. She's like, you know, 2 people grew up on the same street, 2 doors down from each other in Louisville, Kentucky, and both were gold medalists. And she loves kind of open, you know, obviously her saying it is better than me saying it, you know. But just hearing the stories of him literally just coming from like a Ken Norton fight and just unannounced, just greeting, you know, people on the street, knocking on our door. I have a picture with him holding me when I was 2 years old, and for the longest I was like, yo, he came by my birthday, you know what I mean? But it was really, he was just randomly knocking on the door, which makes the story even better.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And
Did you tell me they bought the house from your grandmother?
my mother, you know, said that my grandmother helped Miss Clay acquire the house. But yeah, you know, I used to tease my dad. I'm like, you know, when he would come home and, you know, and kind of like play slapbox, you know, like, would you like engage? Or would you like, man, stop playing, man? Like, you know, and so, but yeah, he just had a way to make, if you were that close or you didn't know him at all, he made everybody feel the same. He had that kind of unique spirit about him, just love people, you know.
As a kid growing up, what kind of impact or influence did that have on you?
Well, so you got to think, I learned to walk on a basketball court from my father's just coaching. So the game of basketball, I would say, like, it was chosen for me before I even, you know, had a choice, right? And not just in a physical way, but like the path. So I learned from my father and being around that environment what just winning, what the habits of great players. Then you add the whole narrative and history of Muhammad Ali. So I grew up thinking, I have to win. I have to not really be successful in a worldly sense, but this is kind of my soil, right, that I come from. And that's really where I look at Ali and what he fought for. And not only, and that soil doesn't include just performance, it means impact, social impact, you know. And so that's really, so my parents, my grandmother, were all educators. I had an uncle named Uncle Gardner, and Uncle Gardner would have that cigar like that never stopped. It's just like, it was wet and sloppy, and it was just like, dude, are you ever going, like, is that from yesterday? Like, every time I saw him, it's just like that cigar, and he would talk with it, and everything he cared about was my English. He'd always talk about, how's your English?
Really?
Yeah, like that was the class that for him mattered more than anything. Because again, education to them was paramount. So it was faith, family, and education. That was the pillars, that the tripod, right? That we always, you know, stood on. And but yeah, Louisville in itself was a powerful kind of physical state in history too. Like, it was just above that southern border, right? And somewhat liberal in some ways. And so my father, you know, hearing his story, and, you know, my grandfather, my mother's father was in the Kentucky Athletic Hall of Fame, won 4 Negro League championships at Central High School, 800 and some basketball games he won, coached football. So my mother, coaching was kind of like her path, and then my father, so all 3 of us are in the Kentucky Athletic Hall of Fame. You know, we went to Freedom Hall years ago, and like, just that legacy and heritage.
Wait a minute, you have 3 legacies?
Yeah, in the
3
Kentucky high
generations school of Houston's in
my dad, me, and my grandfather on my mother's
King,
side.
right?
King.
Wait a minute, there's a gym named after him at Tennessee State, right?
That was William King.
Okay.
Henry was the president of Tennessee State for a while John McClendon
Right.
was there.
Great coach.
So yeah, man. So yeah, you just kind of walk into it, you hear it, and you just have to. It's just your life, you know. It's just your mindset. And because they were educators, my parents were both teachers, educators. It was just something that you didn't really know anything different. So
you said you felt like you had to win. Was that pressure, or was that
No.
just an expectation?
No,
Wait a minute, can I ask you, am I a part of this conversation at all? I mean, hot damn. I mean, what's going on, bro?
Next segment.
Next
I'm gonna
segment?
let you ask one thing.
Okay.
All right.
So the question, winning wasn't. I didn't define winning. I can say that now, looking back, that's really what it was. But then it was just an expectation. I had a chance to speak to a couple of young men, and we were talking about preparation. Your preparation is everything.
Right.
When you get to the test, you get to the game, really you should be at peace of mind because you've prepared.
Right.
You should never feel unprepared.
Right.
So for me, you know, that's how it was in life. It was like, you know, have fun, do your work, that's the expectation.
Right.
And then when you're performing, it should be fun because God gave you the gift to do it.
Absolutely. Listen, this is Iron Sports, and we're speaking with the great gold medalist, Allen Houston. Allen, we've traveled all over the world.
212.
Don't do that. Don't do that. They don't know what that means. So I have seen you with that same Muhammad Ali type of care and concern for individuals. I've always asked you, how did you do that? Where do you get it from? Because, man, we've been at dinner and people come up and ask you questions in the middle of a bite of food. It's almost like your time is not yours. Where does it come from that you're able to have such a gracious approach as it relates to fans? Where does that come from? And is that a skill that's developed over time?
I don't know if I would call it a skill. It's an awareness. You said it. I think it's. I got it probably from my parents. That's the example I got. Right? They were always. They always did a good job of making sure we were first, but understanding that there were other people that they had to care for, whether it's young people who they might have been mentoring, or our friends, our teammates, other people in the community. Like Louisville, it was a community.
Right.
Even though we moved out of the West End when I was in second grade, we were always in the West End. It was just, that's where all our family. So it was all one community.
Yeah, y'all made a little money and moved out.
Well, he got a nice little job. You know what I'm saying? but I didn't know any different. So but I think it comes from just their example. They were always serving, always looking out. My parents were just still like that. I'm like, you need to chill out and have some self-care.
Right.
And so for me, and then once you realize that you have that mindset, philosophy, that spirit, then you discover, wait a minute, God has given me a talent, and a skill. And by the time I was a freshman and sophomore, I started understanding that, man, this basketball thing, it gave me confidence in myself. I was a skinny kid, wasn't really, I wouldn't say I lacked confidence, but I wasn't as comfortable, being assertive, right? And so basketball gave me that. And being my father's son, who was a prominent figure in the city in Louisville, and they had all this success, I never felt the pressure. I just felt like, man, this is a strong platform for me to stand on. And this is the expectation. This was the level and standard. I'm watching Louisville, the great players practice every day. I'm watching them.
They were our pro team.
They were a pro team.
They were our pro team.
How they dealt with their girlfriends, all this stuff. And I'm watching this, and I'm just taking it in. And I'm like, okay. You laughing.
Positive. All of it wasn't straight now.
Nothing is all positive, because then we would be calling ourselves perfect people. but
well,
you know
I
what
am.
I mean.
I am. I'm perfect. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Go ahead.
That's still wine. I see.
Right, Charlie, I'm sorry. That's true.
Hey, man.
Why
You talking all that stuff, man. But listen.
Did you feel like your dad was any harder on you?
You've reached your limit. You've reached your question limit.
Answer that question.
All right, damn.
I feel like I'm a show within a show.
Did you feel like he was harder on you in any way?
I didn't feel that. I just felt like he set a high bar, but he wasn't hard on me. When he was hard on me, it was probably more, and I got my man Kevin Whittaker, who was my teammate. He was harder on us, I think, when it came to practice.
Really?
And grades.
Okay.
And character. It was character. He was always about image, how you present yourself. He was really big on that. He was really big on character. And I think he knew that. Like when I was a freshman, I remember him, Jerry Eves telling me, he's one of the players that played at Louisville, won a national championship. I remember hearing Jerry have to tell him, Al's gonna be all right. Like he didn't really know how good I probably could have been until probably my sophomore year when we went to the state championship.
Yeah, I won the state.
Well, we lost in the finals.
Did you win the junior year?
Won my junior year.
Okay.
But he and my mother would say, like, when I averaged like 20 or 30 in the state, and they were like, oh, okay, he might be all right. He might be all right. But it wasn't it wasn't until then, I think, because he was watching, the KDs and the LeBrons of that high school era.
Right.
And you're comparing those guys to my son, and it just, I get it, right?
Yeah.
So, but one thing that they were always big on, do right, be a good person, your character and your image. And that was really what the priorities were. And obviously we didn't have all the social media and all that. I mean, so they just set that as the standard, so they didn't have to put pressure on you to achieve something. You know, your achievement was your process.
Right.
That makes sense.
So most people don't realize that you signed with Louisville.
Yeah.
You signed with Louisville, and then Wade got the job
Yeah.
as the first black
Yeah.
coach in SEC history.
Yeah.
What was that like, number one, getting out of your commitment to University of Louisville? Because I know there was no ever an imagination that you wouldn't play in the black and red.
Well, I remember the November 9th was the day I signed my letter of intent. I'm in the high school gym. All my teammates are behind me. I got a picture. Mark Spears was in the Courier Journal.
Mark Spears,
Mark Spears.
At the Undefeated in ESPN?
He had an article.
Wow.
I got it in my room, the plaqued up of me signing. And all my teammates are behind me. My mother's just proud. My dad's sitting there like, I don't know what was going on in his head. November 9th, I played my senior year, that following April. Now, he had been interviewed for the Texas job as the first black head coach, didn't get that job, gets interviewed for the Tennessee job. Now, we're in April, we're on spring break. And you know, we're in one of those hotels where you got the outside pool and the balcony, and I'm sitting in the pool. Just, I don't know what I was thinking about. And my mother comes screaming off the balcony, he got the job, he got the job. And I was like, yeah. And then the next thing I was like, oh. I'm like, two emotions within the same second. Like literally, because I knew it wasn't even a thought. It wasn't even a thought. I'm like, I already signed. Dang, what am I gonna do now? It was not even a thought about like, am I gonna stay?
Right, you knew you were leaving.
How am I gonna get out of this to go play for my dad? That was like my thought within 2 seconds.
And like an Alfred Hitchcock movie, we're gonna leave it hanging right there because we gotta go to break. We'll be back for more R&R on Sports and Allen Houston as you have never heard before, right after this.
Coming up on the next Blues in the Basement.
Blues Sidemen, baby.
Those are guys that make it hot for the real stars, and nobody even knows they exist. James Boogaloo Bolden,
Kelvin Fuzz Jones.
Willie Big Ass Smith.
Think about everyone that we have put out there today. They've all been with the greats. So think about the greats are going to have greats behind them, right?
And we listen to them all the time.
All the time.
And don't realize that what is so cool about this one is that these guys, you know, even with all the time inside me and working for somebody else, they stop and do their own recording. Don't forget, you can check us out on the Kazukian.com and
go to the podcast, download it. You'll find out everything you want to find out about blues in the
Stick
basement.
around afterwards. We do a piece that we call LMAO.
Success occurs when opportunity meets preparation. Everybody has a little something that they're really good, they're really passionate for. And mine, like I said, is music.
Air traffic controller, expanding DJ.
I do both. I help people with DJing and I help people get on with air traffic control. The sky is the limit. You can do whatever it is you want to do out there. Those that are tuning in.
Even the name itself, Alpha Whiskey, kind of give us the breakdown of where that came from.
Yeah, always stay ahead. You know, if you see something like, oh, I can see myself there, see it, whatever you do, I talk to God about it and turn it over. And next thing I know, I'll get a phone call. I'm like, thank you.
Be sure to check out the full episode on Kazukian.com or wherever you find your favorite podcast provider.
Welcome back to R&R on Sports.
No, this is my segment. This is my segment. You play second fiddle this time, okay?
Nice teamwork.
All right.
Teamwork, guys.
Go ahead.
Silly
Go ahead.
ass hat on.
Go ahead.
Okay, so listen, Alan. We got to the part where you're at Tennessee, but I want to know, what was it like when, I'm sure you were in the student hall or you were in Starksville, Mississippi at a game, and you know, the SEC is not the most racially embracing environment.
Louisiana.
Yeah, I mean, y'all playing in like the deep
Ole
South.
Miss.
What was it like to hear some of the things that was probably said about Wade and still have to go out there and perform?
I'm gonna be honest, I don't remember hearing a lot of derogatory things thrown right at him. One of the first things that happened, even before I had a jersey on and stepped foot in the gym with him as formal player, is every main head coach at the University of Tennessee would receive this membership to it's kind of a country club.
Mm-hmm.
And before we, got settled, he got this letter that said he wouldn't be accepted. And that
Before
was
he even got there?
Before he started as a coach, right? And he had, agreed to terms and
Right.
was officially the head coach, but
That part of the deal
right?
wasn't
Well,
going
we hadn't gotten into games or practice yet. This happened. So they basically right off the bat, it's like, oh, y'all gonna hire this guy? Okay, this was, so we got notice, and Louisville was so embracing of basketball. We didn't really feel a lot of racial tension.
We didn't feel any of that.
It felt like a Midwestern environment. But when you get down to Knoxville, you right away you start to feel like, man, even if they don't say it, you just know there's a tension. There's just they're there, we here, and
How did Wade express, because he didn't get to pick all his coaches even.
I think that from his standpoint, he realized that to succumb to that level would diminish his purpose in this whole thing, right? I think that he never really thought about, he never let us feel that, right, for him. I was pissed when I first heard that. I'm like, and can you imagine like on social media now, like what that, you know what I mean?
Man, that would have been unreal.
So, but what happened was one of the best golf courses in the state, in the country, called right away, said you got free membership, lifetime membership. Just pay the dues and we're good. And we still go there. It's in Chattanooga. And the thing is, like, you like, okay, that's cool, we appreciate it, but like, what would make, systematically that's something that's even a thing where like before you don't even know us.
Right.
So, I'm 18 and that's the first thing. So right away, like, I kind of felt like, okay, this is what we walking into. And I kind of walked into campus almost in a way like, I see that this is not going to be like Louisville.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Culturally, it was a football school, basketball, you could walk around and play in any gym, you could do whatever. There were times when we couldn't even get into our PE gym, can I ever tell you? And it was just a different vibe. So those were things that I felt like it wasn't just a racial, it was cultural.
Did you ever feel like I made the wrong decision?
No, never. Because for me, it was never about that.
Okay.
Just like for my father, it was never about the race. It was about, he says this all the time. Consul Martin came behind him. His whole thing was, I have to make sure no matter what happens, that the university and other universities have to feel comfortable hiring another black coach after me.
Be a bridge.
Wow.
That was his whole mindset. So he lived that every day.
So all the
I remember when he had to resign. I was a rookie. This is probably when I was more pissed than anything. I was a rookie. I'll never forget it. I was in my hotel room in Milwaukee. And my mother called me, and he had to make his speech. And I was pissed, and the thing I thought about was like, man, like, we never really got the chance to do this the way we had the pieces when he had, he was part of it in Louisville.
Right.
The other thing I thought about was how he handled his press conference. And it was like the class and the dignity that he handled it. And like that was the biggest message. Now we go back to Tennessee to this day and people talk about how much class and dignity and how they love him as a human to this day. They don't think about how many games he won. And that's really, to me, like the lesson I took from it is the games are important. You want to win, you want to impact winning. But what people are going to remember the most is just who you were.
Right.
As a man, as a woman. And to this day, they're just proud, And when I got my jersey retired, my grandfather, would always sit in that, there's a section right by the bench. And, I looked up and I thought about, like, it wasn't about the 20,
Right.
it was about the Houston, about the last name, right? That really stuck out to me. It's almost like the number didn't even matter. It was a name up there and my father got that from his grandfather because he would say, like, look, this is what it is. I'm working at this Alcoa aluminum plant for 35 years. I get laid off, got to find another job. They might bring me back. Union? No union. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it was just part of, they always saw it as something bigger that they had to subscribe to.
Well, hold on real quick. You were a part of a generation of athletes that really represented something that we hadn't seen before, especially when you made it to the league. You and Grant Hill were cut from a unique cloth. And I always said to you that you made being a good guy aspirational. How did you deal with, I'm going after Detroit, being in New York, paid, you got the bag. How did you maintain your
Selfness?
Yes, your class, because that's been a big part of.
Before I answer this, I got to tell a really quick story because I think this is cool. Because another one of the guests mentioned that being from Memphis, before my dad and I came to Memphis, they were like Tennessee basketball.
But wait a minute, you played your first college game.
First college game here in Mid-South Coliseum.
In the Coliseum.
But that reason that stuck out to me was I didn't realize the impact that just being a black head coach and his son coming to Tennessee, what that could have meant, right, to the black community. So Derek Fisher becomes head coach of the New York Knicks. My office was right across from his office. And he came in one of the first days he was in the office, and he kind of came in and kind of shut the door behind him. I was like, what's going on, right? He said, Al, man, I just had to tell you, man, like, as a young kid growing up in Arkansas, when I saw you and your dad as the black head coach and his son playing for him at Tennessee, he said, I got to tell you how that impacted me as a young black man. And I'm like, wow. I mean, he's a head coach of the Knicks, and that's what one of the first conversations we had. And it kind of hit me at that time, like, wow, like, you don't know, So fast forward, I'm gonna bring this back to answer your question. Grant and I had strong male father figures, black male father figures, who cared about that. They cared about their image. They cared about what they represented.
Right.
They had strong women beside them,
yes,
who were educated, who could have owned and ended up owning their own businesses.
Right.
They were entrepreneurs. They were leaders. So Grant and I talked about this a lot. Like, Grant took a little backlash for being educated, Duke, black, the whole Hillman,
right,
like Cosby.
Right.
When we went to the Olympics in 2000, I was with my father, my mother, my two sisters. We would walk around, and there was a little quiet inside joke about, oh, here the Huxtables. And I didn't really take it away. I didn't even really process it, but what it represented is what you're saying. Like, it represented something that we felt like, are we supposed to be different? Are we supposed to look at this different? Because, our parents have been blessed, and they passed that to us. And I don't know, but at the end of the day, we both looked at it like, look, we have a responsibility. We know that there's a game bigger than, there's a bigger game here,
right,
that we're playing in, not just the game, but we just felt like there was a responsibility and there was an awareness of that.
Speaking of playing the game, real quickly, because we got so much to talk about. Talk a little bit about your perspective from, everybody checked out The Last Dance.
Yeah.
About Michael and whatnot. What is your perspective, having been there, having played against these guys? You're obviously you're in it very, very prominently. Talk about that whole thing, and was it authentic? Was it accurate? What is your, having been there again and participated? What's your thoughts on
I mean,
that
look, you got to realize
depiction?
that it was going to be strategically geared towards a narrative, right?
Right.
So we know that. That's fine. But was it accurate? Yeah, I think it was accurate. I mean, when I signed with the Knicks, you had John Starks, who was beloved in New York.
Right.
But when they came to me, they were like, we need a bigger two guard that can score, right? That's big. And nobody's going to stop Michael. But I'm like, dang, John Starks is John Starks. So for me, you walking into this era where you had Reggie, you had Michael, you had Steve Smith, you had these two guards. I believe, to me, our era was the greatest two guard era. That's just me.
I had some bad boys through that era.
So that being said, you had one two guard at that position who was, he was here. Michael was Michael. And it was it his talent? Yeah. But it was still all the other stuff. His competitive spirit, his fundamentals, coached by Dean Smith for 3 seasons. His drive. Don't forget, he did have some good coaches. Doug Collins, I played for Doug Collins, and Doug Collins helped drive him. Phil came in and just, organized the table a little bit, but he didn't pour anything like into Michael. He just organized the table a little bit. So you can't forget how good Scotty was. You can't forget how good Dennis Rodman was.
Right. Yeah.
So I think what they had was, they had created this, what they did was they had a mode that we're going to jump on you early and create like a Mike Tyson effect.
Early and often.
Right.
Yeah.
So that was kind of what they also did.
When Mike said everybody got a plan until you get punched in the mouth.
Yeah. Hey.
I mean, so, they were good. What can you say?
Listen,
you know what I mean?
We're coming to the end of this of the interview, and I want to give an opportunity for you to talk about, number one, what you're doing today with the New York Knicks,
Right.
Yeah.
but also what Fizzle is doing with the NBA as a whole, with the collaboration with the NBA. I want to give a good amount of time for us to talk about that. So, number one, where are you with the Knicks? What are you doing now?
My story with the Knicks is I retired, came back 2 years after retirement, after trying to really explore what I wanted to do. They brought me in a managerial player development role. Then I ran our G League for 6 seasons. Then I just had a kind of like, all right, Lord, what is it that I'm really, really called to do? So I sat down with our GM, who's a mentor, who's the president, Steve Mills, and one of the things I did not want to do, I want to sacrifice. I looked at my next 10 years, I'm like, either I'm going to go try to be a president, GM, or whatever, and sacrifice time with my family, because in my mind, my experience, you got to go all in with this.
Wait a minute, why ain't there many brothers in the league as GMs? What are we missing there?
I don't know if we're missing anything, but a real opportunity to be in that position.
Okay, all right. You can go ahead and finish. I just, when you said that about,
the owner has to sit there and make a decision. I mean, you got a lot of young brothers who are going up in the system, trained. They know the game. They know players. They know relationships. As a GM, I know we're going off, but as a GM, one of your biggest roles is to understand this dynamic here. You guys have a dynamic. How can I put this dynamic together to make it work to win? I have to have a relationship with you, and we have to figure. So how can a coach and how can you put all that together? You know, the contracts and the mechanics, not to be any, a lot of people can do that.
See, I really don't like him, and literally. So
But it don't matter.
But I realize, yeah.
But
so
it doesn't even
I
matter.
just realized I got to work.
It doesn't
with him.
matter.
I got to work with him, yeah.
But you got to get to know him,
No.
even if you don't like him.
If
you wanna win.
it's the hat.
Okay, go buy him a different hat that you like.
Get your hands off me.
But to answer your question about like my role and function, I came to a position where all the things that we've talked about with my father, you know, think about John Wooden. He has this pyramid of success, these fundamentals for just winning in life.
Right.
My dad got that from Denny Crum. So what I was inspired to do was to say, how has our relationship as father, coach, mentor, leader, how can we pour that into other people and build a blueprint for other people to pass that down? And
Right.
so that became what Fizzle is. I was sitting on a plane one day and I was like, just wrote 5 words down.
Fizzle.
Faith, integrity, sacrifice, leadership, legacy. I wrote those 5 words down and didn't know they would become a life's mission, a crucible,
A brand.
a brand. Which means now that not only is it something that we work with communities and schools as a training model, but now I go into the MBA office and say, how can I build this into an entrepreneurship opportunity for me and my family and legacy and other people? Now we have apparel, we have a licensing deal with the NBA, we do all 30 teams.
And Larry Robinson. I'm an official endorser of the
We don't
Fizzle
claim that yet at all.
And shouldn't.
Yeah.
Tell the people what to look for.
Fizzle.
What should they look for
Fizzle.
and where?
Yeah, fizzle.com. Follow us on Instagram. We're launching our spring and fall collection. We got premium fashion partnership, which is unique to do.
Yeah, you guys are the only premier
Black,
fashion.
100% black-owned premium fashion partner with the NBA. We're about to launch a Black History collection, which has never been done with the NBA.
Black History collection, not Black Month. Yeah. Black collection versus month.
And we're about to get to colleges, about to work with HBCUs. But the whole idea is to help young people be better positive influencers through this brand. Like teach them how to recognize that their brand is bigger than likes and follows. It's impact, right?
Right.
It's economic growth, it's leadership, it's social impact. I want to be able to tell a young person, even though I played in the NBA, you can still do what I did.
Okay.
You can still do it because your brand, you can build. I mean, today I was talking to for a few minutes about one of the interns with the Grizzlies. He said, I got a brand. He was showing me his Instagram. I'm trying to do something with the Grizzlies. Guess what? I can help you, but you can help me because I need to know what's important to you in this generation.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's truly a collaboration to empower young people to understand these principles.
Where will we be able to find your?
Right now, you can go to Hibbets. Hibbets is our main. Right now, as of today, Hibbets is where you find the collection now.
That's a sporting goods store.
Yeah,
though.
sporting goods store. You can go to our website.
Hibbets
Fizzle.
and City Gear are kind of together. Yeah.
And the good thing is, like, you got retailers like Fanatics, Lids,
Right.
who are, the George Floyd thing, this is the whole conversation, has really been interesting, right?
Mm-hmm.
And because I think a lot of retailers are trying to figure out what to do, and companies are figuring out what to do to try to be authentic, but
Right.
we have to keep pressing the pedal
Right.
for economic ownership and empowerment.
All right. Alan Houston, we appreciate you, brother.
It's over?
Thanks. It's over.
What?
It's over. Yes, we got to go.
That's
This
some
is-
bull,
you know,
This
man.
always
Wait,
happens.
hold on,
We
man.
always
Operation.
finish, and y'all like, come back next time, we'll do some more.
Yeah, we'll do some more. Say something. Thank you, man. Thank you for being an example on the court, but most importantly off the court. That's what you've done your whole life.
But I'll say this,
and we
I
appreciate
don't
it.
try to say on or off the court, because they should be the same,
It's like,
right? It should be, right? You should be like, no
Right.
matter what you are, you know, it's almost above the court, like on or off the court. Like I get it, I appreciate that,
Yeah.
but it should
Quick,
be.
quick word.
As it should.
Talking to the young men out there in, you know, in Digisphere, what would you
sphere?
leave them? Digisphere.
Okay.
What would you leave them with? Just something quick that you can leave young men, young women with.
Got to have vision, faith.
Right.
Got to do it the right way, integrity. You got to have a will to win. You got to have a determination to get there, sacrifice. You got to understand that you're a leader. Everybody can lead, and it's bigger than you. You got to leave a legacy. You got to think about beyond what you're leaving behind, and you need a strategy to do that. You need a strategy. You got to think through it, and it's all about preparation. How are you preparing to do it?
You got it only here on our own sports. We appreciate you, brother. And you
Thank
know,
you.
this is like Cosa Nostra. When we call, you got to answer.
But this time, answer with a new jacket, because that Michael Jackson thing is kind of played. So answer with a new jacket, and please send him a box of goodies so we can fix this wardrobe.
I got some feeling good coming for you, man. Feeling good, yeah.
Thank you, brother.
He tried to save that one.
We'll be back tomorrow.
He tried to save that one.
Possibly back for more after this.
All right, everybody, stay right there. We're about to do our LMAO, and this is our comedy segment. So think of think of R&R and Saturday Night Live mosh together, and we do these little skits. And every show, the second segment is this 3-minute skits that we do. These 3-minute skits that we do on everything from Colin Kaepernick getting his passport to shoot 50 Cent throwing out the first pitch. So.
Okay. Oh, shoot.
See,
I thought I was going here. I didn't see this.
turn on the back.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Okay.
3 minutes is a long time. All
All
right.
right, let's do it. You ready?
Yeah, so